Welcome back to the Get Off the Treadmill podcast for small business owners and entrepreneurs, where we show you how to build a successful business and to have a life too. We're going to dive into another topic that helps us make more money in less time and to get off the treadmill so we can experience a life of significance. And now, your host and the author of the #1 best-selling business book, Making Money is Killing Your Business, Chuck Blakeman.
Today, I'm talking with Allison Harvey, the founder of Benediction Counseling. She serves as the clinical director and as a therapist. Allison earned a Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Sciences from the University of Denver, Colorado in 2005, and received her Master's of Arts in Counseling from Denver Seminary in 2010. Allison is a passionate person about training and mentoring and serving as a supervisor for newer therapists. And she has a strong belief that the community at large is stronger and healthier when the therapists befriend and support each other. Welcome, Allison. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks so much. It's nice to be here.
Thanks, and we're having you back a second time. The first time we talked about what it looks like when your business is done, or when you got it where you want it to be. People should go back and listen to that one. And Mark Bellestri is with us. He was also on that one. And Mark has been working with you as a business advisor, 3 to 5 Club and Crankset Group business advisor. So we thought we'd get the two of you on to fight it out about how this thing works. Today, we're going to talk about getting your financial numbers right side up. I know, in my 13 business, I never had that problem. They were always right side up. We never struggled, except for all the times that we did. Yeah, everybody does. And anybody who says otherwise is kidding themselves. So I just want to thank you up front for being transparent, saying, yep, I was there. And we're going to talk about how you and Mark work together to get your financial numbers right side up. So why don't you guys take it and start out? Both of you give your perspective on the numbers and what the problem was. Let's set it up to begin with. What were you experiencing?
Allison, you want to start out kind of where you were and what prompted you to reach out to me, and then I can kind of round it out.
Yeah. We started working together in January of this year, and I can't even describe the stress ball that I was at that point in time. And it was all because of the finances of the business. I had a slower than expected fall the previous year. I was paying for salaried staff to take holiday vacations, which is expected every year. And one of my payers didn't pay for a month, which was just devastating to me. So practically speaking, I had no business savings. My business loan was maxed out, and I was starting to reach into my personal savings to make payroll. And that was like the level of stress I was at, trying to protect my staff from the difficulties in our finances, but I wasn't able to in the end. So reached out to Mark, crossed my fingers that I would be able to pay for the mentorship. And that hasn't been a problem because we were able to really get into the books and figure out, just identify some of the major components to what was affecting my business's financial health.
Well, and the idea behind this stuff is that if you get what we call outside eyes, which is the fourth building block of a successful business, if you get that on your business, it should put things back in perspective and where they belong, and so it pays for itself. Mark, your thoughts on how you guys got started?
And first I have to say it took a lot of courage, I think, first, because as a business owner, you never want to believe you're there at that point. And like you said, Chuck, I've been there before as well. So what's great about that is I know what that feels like. And it's tough. And one of the last things you want to do is not talk to anyone about it. And so even that's why I think one of the 4 C's, the outside eyes, is so critical, because it's one of the most important pieces and components of a successful business. And yet when we get into a situation that requires outside eyes the most, that's when we tend to want to withdraw. And so what was great about Allison is she was open to share with one. I always look for balance sheets for the last few years. I look for P&Ls, and then every industry has a model of what a well-run practice or business looks like as a form of metrics. And so I'm able to take those and say, well, this is where you're at now, not the end of the world. This is what a well-performing model looks like. Let's talk about the components where it's off. And within a very short time, and that's part of where we really kind of took off like a rocket the first month, we were able to identify some very key components that were affecting her cash flow and her ability to really run a thriving business. And to her credit, she started making those adjustments and changes. And surprise, surprise, she started also feeling that pressure come off of her on that piece of it. But it started with asking that question. I just don't know. Can you help me figure this out? And that takes, again, a lot of credit. So I really want to give that to her. And it really just is that simple. And every business has what I call 3 or 4 major levers. Now, after those 3 or 4 major levers, there's what we call paper cuts, right? The little things, $50 here, $20 there, but I call them paper cuts. But here's the problem with paper cuts. You get enough paper cuts, you'll bleed to death.
Yeah.
But we start with the big levers, because the problem with paper cuts is you can bandage those, but you still have a big hemorrhage with the 3 or 4 levers. So we address those first and develop strategies in our 2-page strategic plan that help to get those under control. And then we started dealing with some of the paper cuts. That's
Okay,
kind of how I saw it.
So what, Allison, what were a few of those, or those big levers, and did you have any head trash around them or any emotion about pulling those levers?
Yeah, I think there were at least 2 or 3 of those levers were around how I paid people. And the head trash, I like that term. Well, I wouldn't call it trash, because my heart in the matter was that I want to be a business owner who pays people well.
Right. So you had a mindset, and your mindset shifted. We could use that. That's works just as well.
Yeah. I get what you're getting at with the term head trash. and maybe where that intersects with this conversation is I didn't want to have to change anything about how I paid people.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have those conversations. I didn't end up taking anything away from anybody, but I did need to negotiate a few things to be different, and that made a huge difference.
How did they respond?
Fairly well. The staff knew how stressed I was and what a dire financial situation I was in. They were all really encouraged to know that I was getting some mentorship and I had support and some leadership in these areas. One of the biggest changes I needed to make, well, this was a natural change that was happening in that January timeframe. My one salaried employee had chosen to become a contractor, and I don't think my business can support salaried positions, and so that was a change that happened right at the beginning of the year. And then one of the other changes, this was something that was like niggling at me, and I just mentioned it to Mark, and he goes, "Oh yeah, you need to make that change." And he helped we were talking about this yesterday. He helped co-regulate me through having to make a difficult change and having to have those hard conversations. And in the end, I was able to do it collaboratively. I gave my staff like a 6-week timeline of like, I need to have this change made by this date. It can happen anytime in there. When would you like this change to go into effect? And we were able to make the changes around like vacation time, and so it had actually minimal effect on people's paychecks.
So nobody died, and that's good. And no diplomats were wounded, and we got through all this. It's kind of tongue in cheek, but I remember the first times I had to go through that kind of thing. And even since then, when I go through this, it's still tough to think I have to make these cuts or have to make these changes. And I really want to help people. I really want to honor people. And in your service industry, you have that in spades, that desire to be protective and helpful. And yet the principle that comes to mind as you were sharing was, this has to work for both of us. It's one of my blinding flashes of the obvious last year. This has to work for both of us. And it really does, because if you'd have kept going the way you were, it wouldn't have worked for either of you.
Yeah, there wouldn't be anywhere to be employed. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and those are the exact conversations we had. And it really, I think the mind shift, it's a mindset shift that occurred of, this has to work for both of us. I'm turning what used to be more of a traditional employer relationship into a more of a stakeholder, the participation age type of relationship.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be transparent about this. And as a result, I think everyone's healthier, including Allison with her stress level, which makes her a much better leader, and her creativity has gone through the roof. Because why? The stress isn't pushing down that, because she's not worried about, am I going to make payroll? Am I going to, be able to pay this back? And so it was that mind shift of from employee employer to more of a stakeholder. So, hey, you do well, you get more sessions, we all do well. And here's a fair cut. And to, again, Allison's credit, she was open and receptive to having that mind shift, because it couldn't have happened without it. Period.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we got to be open to change. Allison?
One of the things that Mark is still, I think you're still helping me understand this and remember it, Mark, is as business owners, we hold the risk.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a certain profitability that supports that risk that we're holding. And I think that really helped me understand. I'm a person, I would rather sacrifice my salary for others' salaries. But not only is that not sustainable, it hurts my relationship with the business, my personal relationship with the business, our family's relationship with the business. But it completely ignores the risk that I'm holding as the business owner as well. So he's helping me understand, there's a certain profitability. I think you even said 15 to 20% supports the risk that we hold as business owners. It protects us.
Yes, it helps you to grow. And I love that you brought that up, because that's the trade-off. We all, as adults, and I love Chuck's book, Rehumanizing the Workplace, and Why Employees Are Always a Bad Idea. He talks about the concept of treating everyone as adults. We have choices to make. We can choose to be an entrepreneur, small business owner that makes an impact on the world and our stakeholders who are with us, and also serves us. But there's a risk involved in that investment. And so as a result, it's not everything's equal across it, because it's a risk reward ratio. That's how life works. If you're a stakeholder, you could literally take up the stakes, go someplace else. Well, there's a differential. If I don't have to pay for an office, if I don't have to pay for insurance, if I don't have to pay for all these other things, then I understand that's where my preference is. So I'm not going to have a 50-50 split with you, because why? Well, because you're taking more risk.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to take that risk, but I need to have it worth the risk when things turn down, right? That's the thought process.
It's beautiful. I think it's important for all of us to remember that, because too often small business owners are very service oriented and want to make everybody whole and keep everybody happy. And you end up basically creating an environment where 20 or 30 other people have a nice living the rest of their lives, and you don't get what you need or what you want. I think one of the things that you didn't mention that I know is in this, that's even more important in some ways, is they get to go home. The people who don't own this business get to go home on Friday and enjoy their weekend. Yep. And Allison gets to figure out how to do payroll on Monday over the weekend. Yep. You take it home with you, and
every other week. Yep.
And so that's part of the risk, and so it's not just a financial risk, it's a whole life human risk that you're taking that stretches you in ways that they will never be stretched. And that's good for you and good for them. We make our choices, but Absolutely. The business owner holds the risk and profit makes that risk sustainable. And it has to work for both of us or it's not going to work for either of us. So you got your business. How long did it take? You've been at this for a year. Are you right side up?
I'm on a great path.
That's
I
great.
think, we talk about quarterly goals for finances. So I have an income goal for myself. I have a goal for paying down my business loan. I have a goal for building up my business savings. And I think I also have a goal about just watching the profitability of the business, as kind of a marker for our financial health too.
Those are four great things to just repeat. Have an income goal, if you have a loan, have a payoff goal, have a business savings goal, and then watch your profitability on a regular basis to see where you're leaking. And those little paper cuts can be significant. If you can turn off 4 or 5 or 6 of those, they're no longer a paper cut, they're a lever.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And Allison's actually exceeded those goals every quarter. And that's wonderful. That's wonderful with the plan. And to your point, one of the other exercises we didn't mention, but we believe it's important that all businesses understand where their break even is and what makes that up. And so we went through an exercise of what's the minimum revenue that you need based on the expenses you had. And when that's done, that also helped us make other business decisions like how much could the new office cost and what size then could she get with that cost. And so it's really important. So that helped her make continually good financial decisions, not just in the beginning, but ongoing now as a result of that tool.
That's beautiful. That's a great thing. And imagine getting an office, not knowing what your finances are, just going ahead and doing that, and ending up in years of pain because you have a 5 or 10 year lease on something and you didn't even know where your break even was. So I think that's such an important thing to throw in there here toward the end. Mark, it's not a throw in, it's important. We all need to know, what is it every month? What's my break even every month? And every penny above that gives me a little bit of freedom to begin to actually breathe, grow the business, and build a future for myself and for the people who work for me. So break even is a serious place to start. If you don't have anything else you can take out of this podcast, that'd be a good one. What's my break even? I don't know. Well, you better find that out.
Yeah, and that's what it does. That break even, that actually then facilitates more empowering questions. And I believe, and I've said this to many people, questions are the steering wheel of the mind. And so you can ask more empowering questions that drive you this way versus the other, like, oh no, why can't I make my rent? With the break even sheet, it actually says not why can't I make my rent? It's more of, oh, I see this is what I can do, and this is what I have to make monthly, and this is within the metrics of what an office should run for a good running practice. It all feeds into a really sound business that makes Allison be able to serve not only her clients better, but her stakeholders.
Beautiful. Questions are the steering wheel of the mind. And I think you said this without saying it, that knowing your numbers gives you the right questions to ask.
Yep.
Without numbers, we don't know what questions to ask in business. How are you doing? Fine. Well, how do I know? Well, it's the numbers that are going to tell you that. And I don't like that stuff at all. I'm not into it. The fact is that somebody in our business has to be into it because numbers are and is the language of business. So it really does give us the opportunity to ask the right questions. All right. Any closing ahas for you, Mark, and then Allison? We'll just give you both a shot on this topic of getting your numbers right side up. Any closing comment for our audience?
Yeah, I'll start with, I believe with the right outside eyes, numbers don't have to be scary, and you don't have to become a CPA to be a successful business owner. Yeah. All you need is someone to help you understand the fundamentals, right? So it's the Dave Thomas thing, right? You've talked about it, Chuck, multiple times. Dave Thomas, all he wanted to know was, how many buns did I sell today, right? And maybe for your business, it's not quite that simple, but it can be really simple, and you don't have to be a CPA to have a good grasp on it.
Well, that's important. Yeah, I can't emphasize that enough. We only have to know the language of numbers good enough to order a pizza and get a cab. CPAs need to know the whole thing. We just need to know what are those 1 or 2 or 3 numbers. And if I can figure out how to chase those, I'm good. Allison, what's your blinding flash of the obvious, your BFO for this?
Similarly, I think it's just run the numbers. I know that's so silly to say, but you
And
know,
then look,
we talked about another number of other decisions I was making this year about office space and hiring and all of that. And Mark always directed me to run the numbers. And that, I as a business owner, I think I just had this like cross my fingers and hold my breath strategy
yeah.
that caused a lot of stress. But with the numbers in front of me, they weren't always spot on, but they were close enough to give me confidence.
Yeah, it's not about getting it perfect. It's about
Nope.
it's about getting it better. And having numbers is better than not having numbers.
Yep.
So I agree. Yeah, we want to do the random hope strategy, like you just said. I'm just going to do this and hope something good happens. What if you had a few numbers? Even if they're not perfect, they're better than not having them. So that's a great BFO for all of us to take with us. Allison, how can people get a hold of you to work with your counseling group or to find out more about how you got your numbers straight?
Sure. I'll direct people to my website, benedictioncounseling.com, and you can find a button with my email address on there if you want to reach out to me directly.
Great. benedictioncounseling.com. Guys, it was great to have you both on today. I love the interaction you're having, and I love that you're continuing to grow business. We need to all be focused on making more money in less time and getting off that treadmill. And it was a fun conversation today. Thanks for being on.
Thanks so
Thanks.
much.
Thank you. That wraps up another episode of the Get Off the Treadmill podcast. If you found this podcast helpful, please subscribe and hit the like button to ensure you are receiving the latest tools you need to grow your business and to get off the treadmill. If you want more information on the 3 to 5 Club, the Crankset Group, or to book Chuck as a business advisor, speaker, or workshop leader, you can contact us at grow, GROW, at cranksetgroup.com. Until next time, have a great week.